Tim Goldstein, autistic adult, and your host for Life in a Neurotypical Universe, where we take a look at life from the perspective of an autistic adult. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life in the Neurotypical Universe. And today we have a very special guest. We have Gena Sims. Gena and I had this great conversation before, and some of the things she was doing just amazed the heck out of me, and I had to have her on the podcast, and she was willing to join us. So Gena is a performer, she's a writer, and the part that really intrigued me is she's the creator of the Autism Theater. So Gena, how did you get involved with autism and neurodiversity, and tell us about yourself and how it all fits together?
Okay. Hey, everyone. Like you said, Tim, I'm Gena. And Tim, thank you for that introduction. I got started with the whole neurodiversity field because of my sister. My sister is on the autism spectrum, and she has taught me so much. I have learned so much from her, and I have done my best to teach her quite a bit as well. And I feel that there's so much to learn from the perspectives of people with autism and related conditions, especially those who are limited verbally or who have been limited verbally. They have been listening and watching and observing. And I believe there's a special kind of wisdom that comes from that. And I've noticed that a lot of the children on the spectrum, I have known personally, come from a very pure perspective of the world. They don't seem to get so enmeshed with whatever cultural narrative is popular at the time, or worrying so much about what other people think quite as much. They seem to have a very pure, unique perspective. So what I'm trying to do is create a world where the children in special education, or the children who are neurodiverse, and the children who are mainstreamed, or the children who are neurotypical, all are learning from each other, seeing each other as equals. So that's the world that the Autism Theater Project is working to create. And the theater part comes in because I've always been very, very passionate about storytelling since I was a little girl. I dreamed of writing a book or creating something about world peace. I had this idea in my mind, and my passion for storytelling became a passion for theater when I started performing when I was 10. And when I was 10, my sister was also diagnosed with autism, so that kind of happened at the same time. And I always wanted to find a way to help autistic children express themselves through theater, and I also wanted to really change the way the world sees autism and related conditions through theater and film. And the Autism Theater Project does both of those things.
So how big is the gap between you and your sister age-wise?
8.5 years.
Okay, so she was, like 2.5 when she was diagnosed? Somewhere in that general range?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she was diagnosed quite young. What led to the diagnosis? It's always interesting. Parents are always wondering, how should I have an idea if I should have my child checked, and what kind of things. The other thing that's kind of interesting is, in general, females tend to get diagnosed later than males because, the crazy medical system seems to design all these things around how it shows up in males, not in females. So it shows up usually a little differently in a lot of different conditions. Obviously our bodies work a little different from each other. So do you remember? I mean, obviously this goes back, you were pretty young at the time, but do you remember any of the kind of narrative around what made your parents actually go and seek a diagnosis?
My parents actually noticed regression in her speech, lack of eye contact, fixation on objects. She would really stare at fans and love to just watch the fans. And just a general withdrawal My sister is naturally actually a very social person, even though she's not very verbal. She is has limitations verbally. She's very social with her energy, very bubbly, and it seemed as if some kind of developmental shift was going on because she wasn't connecting with others the way she normally would.
Interesting, interesting. Um, wow, that's kind of different. Where there was actually a change, a regression. Is I'm not by any means a expert on the child area. I spend more time in the adult area. Uh, but that's really not something I normally hear. It's more normal, they just aren't advancing at the rate they expect. So pretty interesting. So how verbal is she? You say she's not very verbal. How is she able to communicate?
Well, she has gotten a lot better. She's able to express what she wants. She's very good at asking for what she wants. She has struggled in the past with asking for what she needs when it comes to, say, expressing pain. But thanks to her therapist, she has gotten better with that. So now she's pretty much, for the most part, able to express pain. Sometimes she still needs some prompting. Sometimes if, say, her stomach hurts or her head hurts, she needs a little bit of prompting, but that's doing much better.
It makes me wonder. One of the things that is, I don't know if I'd say common, but not uncommon either with autistic individuals, is a reduced sensitivity to pain. You don't even notice that there's something that you should be in pain over. I would say stereotype is the kid standing out in a pair of shorts in the middle of the winter or in snow up to their knees and not thinking anything of it. It's just perfectly fine to them. And so I wonder if she just doesn't even really notice that there's something that she should be mentioning. Because like you say, if it's something she wants, so she obviously, knows it, she has no problem letting you know about that.
Well, she oftentimes would noticeably be experiencing pain because of how she was acting. She was upset, yeah. But she would be reluctant to put words to it. But thanks to therapy, especially over the past year and a half, she has gotten to the point where she's able to express. So, and that's also led to fewer meltdown or I guess very anxiously emotional behaviors or states, because she's better able to express the pain, and I think also better to able to handle it sensory wise. But what you're saying does remind me of how when my sister was very little, before she was diagnosed, she did get burned because she put her hand on an electric, like a glass on top of an electric fireplace that could turn on with a light switch, but there was no warning or anything, not putting a warning by the light switch. But anyway, so she had turned on a light switch and put her hand against the glass, and a little too long to tip. So it seemed like it took a little while for her to register, oh, I'm being burned, as opposed to feeling it right away. So I would say in that sense, I see how her sensory system may lag, I guess.
Gotcha. So how involved, obviously she was the impetus for you to start, doing the Autism Theater stuff. How involved is she? Does she participate regularly? Is she involved with it? And if so, has that seemed to be something that's been helping her?
She has been involved with classes in the past. Right now, our focus is mainly production with autistic adults on this series, essentially this online television series that we're creating. Been the main focus the past couple of years, but she has been in our classes before, and there was a time where she be able to participate in group activities, and over the course of the class, I would see her become more comfortable along with the other children, of participating in the group activities, doing things like saying their names, staying in a circle as opposed to running away, things of that nature.
Well, now I'm going to ask you, because I'm not letting you get away with this one. So tell us about this production that you're doing. You can't just slip that in and not say more.
Yes, of course. So production is called The Voice Inside, and it is basically about teens and young adults, mainly on the autism spectrum or with related conditions, and how they were able to overcome challenges as they went through that journey from high school to college, or high school to the real world, basically from being a young adult to a real functioning, fully fledged adult. And every episode is based on a true story. And the point of The Voice Inside is to say, look, there is a future for these children, no matter how much they may be struggling, whether they may be initially considered to be high functioning or not as high functioning, or what struggling in special ed or acing it. Everyone has their own individual challenges, but all of them can succeed and live happy, fulfilling lives. So that's our series. It's fictional in the sense that it is based on true stories, and the script is written, so it's not a documentary. And it's been created with a bunch of people, neurotypical. Several people on the autism spectrum have joined as consultants. And our co-writer, who I recently just did an interview with, Mateo Esposito, he is on the spectrum. His story is the main inspiration for The Voice Inside, because the main character, Matt, is inspired by Mateo. And every character on the spectrum is played by an actor on the spectrum.
There's so much in what you just said that I got to ask about it. There's like 100 questions in there. First thing is, what we've seen in the little bit that there has been in the media about autistic individuals, and in the adult world, the Autism at Work movement started all with tech companies. And of course, we always see them portrayed as being these tech geeks on, either they're tech geeks or they have, amazing mathematical skills or something, in those kind of arenas. And here you're talking about autistic actors, and sounding like they're like, making living doing acting. And here we have an autistic producer. I don't think a lot of people are familiar that autistic individuals can turn up in any job field possible. It's just like anybody else. I'm probably never going to be an actor. I'm not cut out to be, but that doesn't mean that somebody else like me couldn't be a phenomenal actor. So tell me more. What's it like working with a whole bunch of autistic actors?
It's been very moving to see them relate to the material, and also, in a way, put their own stories and personalities into the characters. I would say there's so much for me to say. It's just been beautiful to see the honesty, especially with which Zachary Hoagland, who plays the main character, Matt, the honesty with which he's been able to portray this character. Because what we do with The Voice Inside is while we inspire the audiences and the happy endings, we also show the realities of the difficulties associated with having this condition, or even being a parent of someone on the spectrum or a sibling. It's very real. And I would say one of the highlights of working on the series was when the main actor, who was a bit concerned about how people would see him as a person when he would, say, show a meltdown on screen or something like that. He was nervous about that, but then when we got on set and he did his meltdown and everything, people were applauding for the work that he was doing. And then he actually got a message from one of our extras saying that she was so inspired by his performance. And he realized, wow, being honest about my experience on the spectrum, or someone's experience on the spectrum, the character's not entirely based on Zachary, the character's based on someone else. But anyway, just being able to show that doesn't show weakness to other people. It people are going to be able to understand where I'm coming from and not judge me so much, and that understanding is what we want to inspire, understanding for people of all abilities, not just autism. I mean, every character is a fully realized human being that people can empathize with.
I agree with you so much about the fact that being real, showing real life. And real life sometimes has moments that a lot of people find embarrassing and they don't want to talk about. They don't want to mention those kinds of parts of life. But as you know, I talk to corporate audiences quite a bit. And when you're willing to share those things that other people aren't willing to share, I'll talk about getting fired. And most people want to hide the fact if they've been fired a few times in their life. But it adds a realness factor to it that, wow, this person is a human and really has experienced things like I've experienced. And I almost think, I know at least for myself, part of it is, and I hate to almost put it this way, but I really don't care what they think. This was my life. This is what happened. And I haven't taken anywhere near the amount of acting stuff you have by any means. But one actor I did study a tiny bit with told me that the whole thing is deliver the line and shut up and let them deal with it. It's their problem to deal with the line. It's not your problem. And that has been, for me, a very good inspiration of you can tell that hard story about the challenge, the meltdown, the getting fired, the misinterpreting the scenario or what somebody said and the bad outcome from it. And I don't have to feel bad about it. I already lived it. I already experienced it once. And people shouldn't feel bad about it either. They should just expand their understanding of other people and other people's lives. But I think as a culture, even pretty much most cultures, we're taught to hide that kind of stuff and not expose it to the world. Phenomenal. I think absolutely phenomenal that in your series you're really exposing these real life truths, both of the good and the bad. Because as we all know, life is not all cookies and milk every night. Life sometimes is a little rough at times. So I love that. Gosh, that is crazy. The other thing that I like about what you're doing is I've seen such a big challenge that parents of autistic children only get one side of the story. And what they get is the medical and the educational culture's version. And I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm happy that there's a medical culture out there. I go to them when I have things I need. And I'm certainly glad I had an education and, got to experience the educational culture. But unfortunately, both of them tend to look at autism and related type conditions as being deficit-based, of what you're not what you are and what you can be. So the whole thing of showcasing autistic adults and what's possible, and it doesn't matter. Not everybody is going to be a computer scientist or a award-winning actress or actor that's autistic necessarily. But that doesn't mean that they can't have a fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. And that is so cool that you're doing a production that is showing, I guess the real life sides of both sides of, there's challenges, but we all have challenges, but there's successes in there too. And autism doesn't take away the challenges and it doesn't take away the success. They're still both there. Mm-hmm. So that is so cool. So how I guess, what motivated you to start doing that?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. I was motivated to do that mainly by the events that happened in 2020. Of one is a nice success story. One is a tragedy. The success story was that I started homeschooling my sister, my grandmother, my father. We just felt that was best for her. And as I was homeschooling her, I really came face to face with both the challenges and the beauty in how she experiences the world. I had to really, really empathize with her, really understand her, and started spending lots and lots of time with her. And, we would work through different challenges. And ultimately, at the end of the year, on New Year's Eve, I saw her in her room and she picked up a book and started reading it. And for my family, that's a big deal for a couple of reasons. One is, as you know, she's limited verbally. She has some physical challenges just when it comes to the physical act of enunciating and speaking. So out as opposed to her mind was significant. She also wasn't the biggest lover of school, I would say. Just in her she wants to play, she wants recess, So to see her motivated to do something academic was very exciting that no one else told her to do. And it was also exciting because 3 years prior in 2017, when I had first started working with my sister on reading, she wasn't really reading out loud, and she was embarrassed to speak in a way because she was afraid to say something incorrectly. So we were struggling, and I told myself, okay, one day she's going to read this book to me. And it was in her room that I said this to myself. So it was crazy to be in her room 3 years later and see it happening. And that just made me think, okay, our victories in this community, in the autism community, the neuro community, some of them may look very impressive to the outside world. Others may seem small to the outside world, but they may be big to us. And some may happen very quickly. Like my sister learned to ride a bike way faster than I did, like in, I don't know, 2 weeks or something like that, something crazy like that, like really, really fast. Okay. A two-wheeler. I took much longer to do that. I learned to read very fast compared to how long it took my sister to learn to read. But no matter how long it takes to achieve the goal, the journey and the work associated with achieving that goal is so valuable. And we just have to celebrate every victory, big and small, So long story short, I wanted to show those victories in the voice inside. And I also had concerns because my sister, she's about to turn 18 now. And at the time she was 15, 16 when I started working on the voice inside, our series. And so I had some concerns about her becoming an adult and what that was going to look like. And I also noticed that not a lot of people were really talking about that, So I wanted to bring that whole aspect of life to the mainstream, the fact that, okay, we need to talk about what happens when these children become adults. And unfortunately, the tragedy that happened was that a student I had in one of my first drama workshops with the Autism Theater project years ago, his name was Alejandro, and I found out that he had been murdered by his mother in May of 2020 here in Miami. And that was very heartbreaking, very shocking. And I was just thinking, he was nonverbal. He was completely nonverbal. And I was just thinking, there was so much potential inside of him that people didn't know, not only because he was murdered and because he was nonverbal, but also because obviously in his immediate family, from what I've heard, there wasn't enough curiosity about his gifts and his potential and the kind of life he could live. And I was also very shaken when I heard that his mother in court said, "Oh, Alejandro's in a better place now." And I was thinking, okay, now I am Christian, I believe in heaven and things of that nature, but she said it as if he didn't really have a future here, and it was hard to take care of Alejandro on earth. So I just sent him to heaven. And I was thinking, well, can we make people believe that there is a future for these children here, whether they're considered or low functioning, verbal or nonverbal, et cetera. So basically that's the long story as far as why I started working on the voice inside.
Wow. Yeah, I think people have a tendency to assume, incorrectly more often than not, that if you can't speak, you're nonverbal, that means that you're not intelligent. Mm-hmm. And the two are totally disconnected. I know a autistic gentleman down in Australia who was a PhD and had to defend his whole thesis and all that stuff in writing and on the blackboard and like that. But obviously, if he can get a PhD, he is not a not intelligent person by any means. And I think there is that misconception that it's an intellectual problem. And it's very much not. I mean, it's two completely things. How smart you are and whether you can speak or not speak are not necessarily related to each other. Mm-hmm. And as you say, that they don't look at what's the potential for the person. The assumption is, because he can't speak, that makes a lot of extra work. But that doesn't mean that there's not phenomenal potential in the person. So, wow, that is a heart-touching story. Yeah, I don't know. How do you process that one? I don't know how you, knowing Alejandro, that must have been a challenging thing to just work through. And I can certainly see where it would motivate you to want to do something about it. So as far as the series, where is it showing up? Is it somewhere people can see it? Is it, what's going on with it?
Well, we just finished production for the first 3 episodes, and now we're finishing up editing. We're getting ready to release a trailer, and we will be releasing the trailer on YouTube. And what we are doing right now is doing private showings of the series at schools and organizations. So if you are interested in having a showing, you can be anywhere in the world, really, and you can get in touch with me. And my email is gena@autismtheaterproject.org, or you can just contact us through our website. And we would love to set up a showing. The episodes will be ready to be shown most likely by September, October, probably by the end of September. So we're doing private showings, or we're raising funds to be able to do a public showing here in Miami at a theater, do a screening. And the plan is to partner with investors and production companies so that we can bring this to the public and try to market this to as large of an audience as possible.
Yeah, I don't think people understand necessarily what the costs are involved in doing something like this. It's not a minor undertaking to make a real production, and you're definitely investing a whole lot into it. So I'm sure that there's going to be people out there that want to help support it. I definitely would love to, and when you're ready, stick it up on the website as being something of interest. Go contact Gena and find out how you can show it in your community. That would be a wonderful thing to do. Amazing. I mean, just amazing how you're using your gifts. Now you haven't talked very much about yourself, which we want to know more about Gena. So you were into theater. Obviously sounded like as you went through high school and such, you pursued theater. But you didn't really tell us how you got from there to suddenly now being into doing all this stuff. So fill in the gaps for us.
Sure. Yes, I did theater in high school. I went to an arts high school. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon School of Drama in Pittsburgh, where I studied musical theater. So acting, singing, and dancing. And it was there actually that I learned how to put together productions, because they had something called Playground Week, which is a week when they would cancel all the classes and they would select ideas for shows. And my idea about a nonverbal girl and the dream world inside of her mind. So I was able to develop that play with the encouragement of my brother. Actually had autism. Her brother passed away this year, actually. And my professor was about the Autism Theater project. I came knowing that I wanted to create productions about autism, and my professor actually gave us an opportunity to go to Italy and go to this European festival for theater academies, for the major theater academies. And there I was able to bring a scene from the play and do it for people who had English as a second language. So it was cool to see them be able to relate to what it is that we were speaking about, even though we were, English is our first language. Yeah, so I graduated, and I graduated in 2019, and I got to win this competition called the National Society of Arts and Letters Drama Competition um, as an actor. And they ended up actually supporting quite a bit, supported my work as an individual performer, but especially with the Autism Theater project on this series, The Voice Inside. And I think I said then that I did a show in the fall of 2019 off Broadway. I did this musical. Then I came home to Miami. I did some music and was getting ready to do another play in Miami. But then the pandemic happened. I started homeschooling my sister and started working on this series and the Voice Inside. And I've done some film work since then, but my main focus has been developing The Voice Inside.
Wow. Wow. All I can say is I didn't have the experience because I was already in a career, but getting out and starting your career at the beginning of the pandemic, what a challenging way to have to try and get going.
Yes, it was interesting. It was very eye-opening. So much so much to learn and realize about the world in such a short period of time. But I mean, it ended up in many ways being a blessing in disguise. I mean, ultimately, of course, the pandemic's quite a crazy tragedy, but yes, in many ways, it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
You know what I find interesting, and I think you kind of typify it in what you just said is, and I'm kind of guessing your family probably does this. That would be my guess. Is you take whatever happens and you look at it and look at how can you find the good that comes out of it. And it sounds like that with your sister, same kind of thing. And always looking at okay, things go wrong. That's life. Things happen, but there's always something that you can find a nugget. It gives you a redirection. There's something to learn out of it, and I actually think that that's one of the challenges that a lot of I'm going to say kids. I'm an old, I got gray hairs and stuff. So, me kids like anybody under about 40 nowadays. But a lot of the people who are transitioning, whether it's the transition out of high school or transition out of college, depending upon what their academic career happens to be. And once they get out, they refer to it as falling off the cliff, and they have no clue how to navigate the world. How do you go out and find a job? How do you go out and find somebody that will support you to do whatever the venture is you want to do? And I personally kind of sum it up to, in my generation, you were, I wouldn't say encouraged to fail. It's not like they set you up and said, go out and fail. But on the other hand, you were encouraged to try what you wanted to try. And when it didn't work, you were encouraged to figure out what went wrong and change it, try again if you want to try it again. And what I see happening way too often with autistic kids nowadays is they become so sheltered that we want to make sure that they never have anything that goes wrong. So we put them in all kinds of special education, and we get them IEPs so that they never can, fail in school classes and everything they do. So they never get to learn that experience of failing isn't failure. Failing is just a step of learning along the way to going where you want to go. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great point. Failure it's important to learn to embrace. Yes. And I'm glad that I see I have this, I guess, glasses half full attitude. I've had to work on it. I've definitely had some times where coming out of college, I did feel like, oh, I'm falling off a cliff, or like, oh, it's over, But I think even if you feel that way, I think as long as you just keep working towards something so that you know that you're not giving up on yourself, even if maybe you feel bad, you know that you're continuing to work towards something, then eventually your attitude will catch up with what it is that you're doing. And then you'll be able to really go after the things that you want to go for when you're able to both put in the work and also have confidence that things can work out somehow. And as far as how the fear of failure relates to people on the spectrum or children on the spectrum, I agree. I think that fear could be very paralyzing because if they don't failing, then we're not going to really let them try.
I have a little story about that. There's a gentleman I know has a autistic son, and son's about, I guess, probably about 12 now. But when I was talking with him a year or so ago, the kid was about 11, and I don't know how it came up, but it came up that he wouldn't let his 11-year-old son use the microwave. And his son is quite low support, brilliant kid, phenomenal, happens to be in math, obviously is going to go on to a college education and end up with a career doing something just incredible. But wouldn't let him use the microwave. Now his other son, a couple of years older, they let him use the microwave at a much younger age. And I asked him about, well, why don't you let him use the microwave? And his answer was, because I don't want him to burn himself. And all I could think of is, I probably burn myself on crap in the microwave at least once or twice a month when you grab that plate and go, oh, gosh, that thing is hot. I should have used a pot holder. And well, I'm thinking, is this poor kid, who I'm sure is going to be college bound at some point, is going to be as freshman sitting in his dorm room and not even able to heat up his ramen noodles because he's never had the experience of getting to live and find out that, how else are we going to learn, right? I mean, everything doesn't work out perfect the first time. That's why we practice, right? I mean, that's why you rehearse things, because they don't work perfect the first time. You got to keep trying it again and again until you get it down perfect. Now I do have to say, I had a further conversation a year later or something, and he tells me now his kid is using the microwave, and fairly successful, and hasn't burned himself tremendously bad, no more than most of us do of grabbing that hot plate. But just the point of being of, at 11 years old, most 11-year-olds, you let use a microwave. They're not particularly dangerous items. Don't put metal in there, and don't heat something for 45 minutes, and life is pretty good. So I think that whole learning to fail, and maybe that also comes for you from the whole idea of what you've learned in doing drama and acting and such, because you go into that knowing that the first reading is not going to be a production show by any means at that point. The first reading is, how's the first reading usually go, right? It's kind of rough. And you have rehearsals, right? And why do you have rehearsals? Because you're not going to get it right yet. You got to keep practicing it and get everybody interacting the right way and things coming out all the right way. So, gosh, yeah. That'd just be an interesting thing when you were doing the drama classes and such. It makes me wonder, does that kind of experience of having, the autistic kids learn to do, where they go in and they start with a first reading and work their way through to where I imagine you had them finally doing at least a little skit or, something that they ended up doing at the end. Mm-hmm. And getting that experience of, no, it didn't go right. It didn't go right. It didn't go right. But we kept getting better, but it still didn't go right, but we kept getting better. And of course you feel disappointed. I think we're all human. It's certainly okay to go, geez, that stunk. I wish it came out better. And like you say, though, you press on and you do it and it starts getting a little bit better. And you feel better about it then. You don't just sit there and fall on the ground and say, that's it, I'm going to stay on the ground the rest of my life because I fell down once. Mm-hmm. But I really do wonder, it's kind of a thing that kind of popped in the mind, is the whole process of learning to act, to put on a production of some sort, whether it's for film or whether it's for live or however it's done, is really a process of repeated failure until you refine it well enough that you feel it's good enough to go out in front of the public. Mm-hmm. I think there's a whole educational program in that one of teaching individuals that failing isn't failing. Failing is actually education. There's plenty of people who say the only way you can fail is to quit. And sort of that. You're just learning. You're learning continually. You might not make improvement real fast. Other people, like your sister, she learned to ride the bicycle a lot faster than you did. But I'm kind of guessing you can ride a bike these days.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is so interesting. So when you were doing the drama classes part, I know you've kind of shifted where your direction's going and going more now to the whole production stuff. But what were the drama classes like? What was, what was the general outline of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we still do those. We're still doing those with the productions are our main focus. But yes, the general outline of it is that we would get people to introduce themselves by standing in a circle and saying their name, and then eventually get themselves to express themselves a little more by doing like a silly movement while saying their name or jumping up and down, something like that. Kids would practice eye contact by doing this focus game. It's kind of like zip, zap, zop, which is when you have to look at someone, say zip, and kind of motion your hand towards them. And then they have to say zap and look at someone else, motion their hand towards that other person. And the whole idea is to have eye contact and kind of practice direct communication. And we would discuss emotions. So I would have children come and first, depending on the level that they're at, we would have them first, recognize emotion on my face or on a picture, like, oh, this person looks happy, this person looks sad. And then a more advanced child, or perhaps someone who's been in the program for a few classes or a few weeks, would then be telling me how they felt about something that happened that day. Like, oh, I was upset when Billy pushed me on the playground, something like that, And the main aspect of the class is when we would do what I call social scenes, which is based on a concept by this expert named Carol Gray, social stories, where we'll play that they would experience in real life and then discuss how their actions affected the different characters. Say they're at a supermarket, imaginary supermarket, and one student plays the mom and the other student plays the child, and then run away and go, but that makes the mom feel scared or angry or sad. And then we would discuss, okay, well, what can the child do instead to make the mom happy? And he could politely ask for the candy. Maybe he's going to get it, maybe he's not, but at least the mom's not going to be scared and upset with him or anything like that. So that's basically how the classes go.
Interesting. So did you ever introduce any singing portions into the class, or were they always just a drama and or acting, performing kind of pieces?
Mainly drama. Do a song, like If You're Happy and You Know It or something like that. I do sing. We've mainly done drama. Now I actually have professional musicians who are on the spectrum that I want to do music with. So as part of a band, along with others who are neurotypical. So we are interested in doing more music and finding other musicians on the spectrum to work together with those who aren't. And kind of like our productions, like The Voice Inside, like our series, everyone works as equals. So while I have empathy for everyone that's involved in the production, everybody has their unique challenges, whether they're on the spectrum or whether they're neurotypical. We all work as equal. So the expectation is a high level of professional work.
Well, yeah, one of the reasons I ask about the singing portion is I used to speak in a very stereotypical autistic monotone manner, where every word was on exactly the same note and every word was exactly the same length, and it was really, really boring to listen to me. And if you had to listen to a lecture I was giving, you were going to probably fall asleep even if you wanted to know about the subject. It's just not very interesting to listen to somebody that sounds like that. And I had the opportunity to study with a absolutely amazing singing teacher. Taught as a singing coach for some of the top stars that we would all know the names of. And one of the things he told me along the way, I can't remember how many lessons in, but a certain number of lessons in, I studied with him a couple of years, was he said to me, I'm going to teach you to put emotional sounds into every word that you say. And he did. And it has totally revolutionized my interaction with humanity. Now, the other autistics could care less. I mean, they monotone worked fine for them. They really don't care. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, but most of the world is not autistic. And a lot of the world judges what you're saying by processing the sound of how it sounds, the tonality, the melody in it, the pauses, all of those kind of things are the parts that transmit the emotion. So they process the emotion part first, and then they go and process the word part based upon the emotional part that they had. So if the emotion comes across, that monotone, dull thing comes across like you're detached, like you're not very interested, not very connected. So whatever it is you said, they take it through, well, they're just not very connected. And then they process the words based upon the assumption you're not very into it. And you may be phenomenally into it, but the signals you're giving, and I think these are instinctual things that are built into most humans. And in autism, it tends to be one of those things that a lot of autistics, one of the definitions of autism is challenges in communication. And a lot of people think it's just verbal, nonverbal, but no, it's challenges in communication, as in the style of communication is different. So you interpret it differently than I mean it. So we have a challenge in communication, but people don't think of it as being that small a nuance. And I'm sure from your drama and experience and acting experience, you know that the emotion you give will change how the person interprets the words that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I am firmly convinced that there would be huge value in teaching autistic kids essentially how to sing. Because if you learn to sing, now all you have to do is hold the notes out not as long and put it in your speaking voice instead. And now you have emotion in your speaking voice. Right? I mean, who are some of the best people at transmitting emotion? Singers and actors. And both of them use huge amounts of tonality and the pauses and just the length of the wording, and all of that stuff will change the emotional feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just convinced that it would be an amazing thing. I know it's been an amazing thing for me. It's totally changed my interaction with the world. And it's not that I can understand any better their emotion. I'm one of those people, I need to be in your class learning about what does this mean? That means that they're happy. That I need your class on that. I stink at it. But when I'm talking to somebody now, they are feeling an emotional warmth that they never felt before because I was always in a monotone. So it was hard for them to have what for them I guess I would describe as a human experience with me, because I wasn't putting in the signaling that was, they needed to feel that human experience. It's kind of like they were listening to a bad play. That's kind of like what it was like. And again, I learned it by being taught through singing technique, and then just taking that exact same technique and just putting it into your speaking voice instead. So
cool.
So that's why I ask about it. With your background, you certainly have the elements from both sides of how do people react to communication and body movement and all of that kind of stuff from your acting side. But you also have the singing side of how do you put the emotional sounds into your voice? So I think you have an amazing thing that you could do there. I would say, please go forward, go do it. I would love to see you do it. I'd love to hear the results. I think it would be phenomenal.
Great. Well, I'm actually going to be teaching a class, I believe, next week. So as I work on the lesson plan for that, I will see how we can incorporate singing.
Yeah, and
especially
it's not a lot of singing that they have to learn, really. It's really just learning that in music, of course, we have the notes telling us how long they should be. And we also have the silent parts telling us that there's supposed to be silent parts in there and how long those should be also. And we also have what is the melody supposed to be? What pitch should each note be at? So it's really those three things just moved over into your speaking, except in speaking, it really doesn't matter what exactly the melody is, other than, we don't want descending tone melody, because if I talk in a descending tone melody, I sound like I'm depressed all the time. So we don't want them going down descending tone melody all the time. It's okay sometimes. But it's really just that. The way I was taught through was just really through scales, through singing scales, to get used to the idea of, well, first the vocal control, to develop the vocal cords enough that you can control getting the different pitches and sounds that you want. And then the other thing was just learning to mix it up some and use ascending melodies. Just don't use the exact same ascending melody every single time. Sometimes go up a couple notes and stay there for a bit. And sometimes only go up maybe one note and then come back down a few. But it was all learned through just doing the normal scale vocal warm-up type thing that you would do as a singer to teach the control of the vocal cords and of breathing, because obviously the two go together. And once you understand and have that control, now it's real easy. When I say easy, it's not hard to do, but it's easy to forget to do it. So then you got to remind yourself to do it again. And eventually it just becomes your habit that, no, this is the way I speak nowadays. I don't speak like in a monotone like I used to, where I just went on and ran all the words together and it was really, really boring. I now speak with, some melody in my voice. And I take pauses. And I actually take the time to take a breath occasionally in there somewhere and have a pause. So it's not that they need to learn to be phenomenal singers. It's really the singing is what would you say? It's a means to get to the point that they understand the vocal control. And they get to hear themselves using a variety of pitch ranges, using a variety of more airy or more edgy or gritty. So the same tones that you would use when you're singing, depending upon what you want. And once you have that, now it's just a matter of saying, okay, now that when you're speaking, here's what you need to do is I want you to go up on the next note and then stay on that note and then come down a couple and then let's go back up again. But they now have the ability to follow you because they did scales. And where else are you going to learn how to do that kind of stuff, right? You got to, sing scales in order to get that vocal control and that breath control. You can't learn that. I don't think. I don't know. I'm not a singer by any means, but I don't think somebody can throw an opera piece in front of you and you're going to learn the technique by studying an opera piece. You're going to learn the technique by studying the basics.
For sure.
So there you go. You have my I don't know what you say, my soapbox dissertation on applying vocality, vocal sound from singing into speaking. And I actually got certified as a coach in doing that from the same gentleman that I learned from. And it really is that simple. And obviously, with your background, you've done all those things already. You've just never told anybody to use it in their speaking voice.
Yes, I think using singing helps for sure. Chant where we say, I can do it. And we would do it in a soft voice, a loud voice. And adding certain feelings like I'm sad, I'm happy, being able to pitch and kinds of things is a great idea. So I will be doing that for sure. And pitch changes makes a huge difference. My sister, while she's very expressive, used to be more monotone. And I can remember moments where she would say something and there would be like this light melody to what she was saying. And it kind of felt like she was more present in a way, like she was really connected to what she was saying because she said hi with with a lilt in her voice instead of just hi, like a memorized, routine. Oh, I need to say hi now. It felt spontaneous.
Right. What I was taught was every emotion has a sound to it. And you only need to learn a few emotions to do really well in the business world. You don't have to have all of them. Now, to be an actor, you got to learn a whole lot more emotions, obviously. But in the business world, there's very few. One is learn the sound of happy, right? Because people like happy people. When your sister came in and she had the, hi, that's happy, right? I mean, that's coming across as like, wow, she's excited. She's alive. She's happy. And it's actually a very simple sound to make, but nobody teaches you how to make the sound of happy. Everybody assumes that you know how to sound happy. And the reality is a lot of particularly autistic people, the reality is most people don't really know how to sound happy. That's the reality. But among autistic people, even more so. But the sound of happy is real simple. You go up in pitch a little bit, and you go a little bit faster, and you put a lot of melody in your voice because I'm just so happy to be talking with you today. Well, how hard is that to do once you learn to control your vocal cords so that you can make the different pitches and such? Happy's easy. So people who complain that, I can never get through an interview because, they just don't relate to me and they, well, good. Try going in and being happy for the first 30 seconds. To be happy through the whole thing, they'll think you're on drugs if you're happy through the whole thing. But for the first 30 seconds or so, it's like, yeah, I should be happy to be in here being interviewed with you. And like you say, it made all the difference with your sister when she said hi and actually had some excitement in it. Another one of those things that I think is so beneficial to learn is the sound of thankful or grateful, right? I mean, it's good to be thankful or grateful for things. Tell people that, I really appreciate what you did. So what does grateful sound like? You drop your tone down a little bit, you slow down, and you take some melody out. Now, not all of it, don't go monotone, but, geez, Gena, I am so grateful that you've joined us and we've had this conversation. This has been wonderful. I appreciate it so much. Right? I mean, that's the sound of grateful. And how hard is it to teach somebody that? But the problem is nobody teaches it, including speech pathologists. They teach you the mechanics, but they don't teach you what you should sound like. And I think that's where there's a big problem is you end up not knowing how to sound to convey the emotion that is needed for the particular occasion. Which as an actor, of course, you learn to do that, right? I mean, you learn to tap into and project the appropriate emotion for whatever the scene is. And the real life is really a lot of the same. We can't just go out and be however we want to feel all the time. That just doesn't really work real well. Oftentimes, we've got to show an appropriate emotion for the particular situation. But if you don't go to drama school, you don't go to singing school, nobody ever teaches those things to you. So there you go. That's my lead. I think you could build a phenomenal practice on teaching autistic kids how to put emotional sounds into their voice and fully fund your complete project doing the voice with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I definitely want to incorporate that. That's with the actors on the voice inside, to teaching them how to use the voice. And Zachary Hoagland, who plays the lead, he's actually a very voice actor, which is great because he would. The show is called The Voice Inside because you can hear. Well, I already explained this. You can hear the inner thoughts of the main, and so he would voice record and really pay attention to the details of how the certain intonation of his voice might have been a little bit off to him. So then he would try again. So I think that's very valuable. Also to kind of get that whole vocal intonation thing down to, as in a way, a science, a routine, like, oh, when I want to show that I'm happy, then I sound like this. If I'm a little more withdrawn, then I sound like this. And if I'm grateful, I take my time to show that I really mean what I'm saying. All of those are some great tips.
Yeah. And I would say it wasn't my invention. I just happened to go study with the right person, which I think that, like a lot of us, life is part of your effort, but it's also part of sometimes the right person shows up at the right time. And you have to take advantage of it. Like you said, with the pandemic, you could have said, Jesus is the worst thing in the world, but you looked at it and said, hey, this is what I can get out of it. This is what I need now. This is what's in front of me. I can learn what I need and I can move forward. So I like to say that for most people, opportunity always shows up when you are least prepared for it. And it's never dressed the way you think it's going to be dressed. So it shows up and it doesn't look anything like you want your opportunity to look like. I'm guessing the pandemic did not look like what you thought your opportunity for out of school was going to look like. Mm-hmm. But as you've told us, it became a phenomenal opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. So everybody, beware, watch out. Opportunity is going to show off when you're going to say, I'm too busy. I don't have time for it. And it will not at all look like what you think it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. I just absolutely love what you're doing. I am so looking forward to seeing some of the voice inside. When the trailer is ready, you got to definitely send me a link so I can watch it. I definitely will publicize it as much as I can when you are ready to do those things. You'd mentioned it before, but just for the benefit of the listening audience, who I'm sure will have interest also, how can they best reach out to you and contact you if they want to know more? They want to know about the drama things you're doing. So how, if people want to find out more about what you're doing, how they can help support the voice within inside when it's going to actually be done, how they can go about having showings when it's available, the trailer, learn about maybe how you do the drama classes and such. Maybe that's something that they'd like to duplicate in their area, or maybe even better, invite you out to do it for them in their area. How would they contact you?
Yes, they can contact me at Gena@autismtheaterproject.org. So Gena's Gena, autismtheaterproject.org. Theater is THEATER. You can learn more about us on our website, www.autismtheaterproject.org. And you can also contact us through the contact page on our website and just put in the subject line, which you could say, I'm a Tim Golding listener, and I would just like to connect. And you can follow what it is that we're doing on Instagram at Autism Theater Project. That's our handle on Instagram. And like this on Facebook, same Autism Theater Project. And on YouTube, same Autism Theater Project. And on YouTube, we have actually quite a few interviews, podcast style interviews with different members of the autism community with very inspiring stories. Some of which are already incorporated in our series, The Voice Inside, and others which we might incorporate later once we have the funding to do so. Yeah, and the trailer is going to be posted on YouTube as well once we're finished with that, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Wonderful. Well, I will take all of those things and put them down in the show notes so people don't have to, go forward and backwards and everything to get the spelling and everything right. And I'll even spell your name correctly. But this has been so good. I so much appreciate your coming and joining us and sharing what you're doing. And I really appreciate even more all that you're doing for the autism community. And showcasing and showing that being autistic doesn't mean that you're less than. It just means that you have a different way of looking at the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you. Just before I forget, I just like to mention that if you would like to donate to support us, there is a donate button on the homepage of our website. And you can always contact us if you're interested in sponsorships or partnerships. If you join our email list, we could keep you updated about that. But yes, thank you so much for having me here, Tim, and for all of your great questions and for listening and giving me all this positive energy. This has been a great conversation.
Been wonderful having you. And I think all of our listeners should immediately go to your site and hit the donate button like right now and send you some money because you're doing great stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
We hope that you've enjoyed another episode of Life in a Neurotypical Universe. Please, if you enjoyed this, share it with your friends. Go take their phone and subscribe them. Heck, it will help us all out. If you want to know more about neurodiversity or have any questions for me, you can reach me at my website, timgoldstein.com, where I'll be more than glad to help you as best I can to navigate through the neurotypical universe.